Hey, what's going on? JD here, and this is the Daily JD. Thanks for tuning in, guys. As always, remember to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell button so you get notifications when we do, in fact, go live. We also tweet it out every time over on my socials. You can catch me over at Painink on Twitter, of course, Instagram, as well as over on Twitch. So thanks again for tuning in, guys. I hope you had a fantastic weekend. We've got some interesting stuff to talk about. And as always, if there's anything that you want to discuss, by all means, throw it into the chat. We can definitely talk about whatever you guys want to get going. Hey, good to see you, Craftsmith. Thank you so much for tuning in. So I had a busy weekend. I have a busy night tonight. Tonight I am photographing City in Color at the Saddle Dome. So it is always a fun time. Oh, excuse me. I got an itchy nose. But I'm heading down to the Saddle Dome tonight. City in Color, always good to see Dallas Green perform with whatever band he's with, whether it's City in Color, Alexis on Fire, whatever project he's got going. So I will be down there tonight. So if you do happen to be at the Saddle Dome, taking in the show, and you do happen to see me, do say hi. I will be there for most the night. So will be a fun time. So again, hopefully you had a fantastic weekend. I'm looking forward to this weekend coming up. It's going to be a fun time. Of course, we have the meetup at the Rec Room here in Calgary on Sunday the 17th at 1 p.m. You can go over to my Facebook page and you can check out the event there. There's a link to Eventbrite to RSVP for the event. Oh my God, I'm just like itchy nose, choking on stuff. It's not good. But RSVP. It's going to be a fun time. It's, what is it today? Tuesday today. So we've got 32 people that have RSVP'd to the event. If they all show up, that's going to be absolutely amazing. It is the most people by far that we've ever had RSVP to the event, as well as, to be honest, the most people that will attend an event if everybody shows up by far. So super excited for that. Hopefully we'll see you guys there. It will be a fun time. And, the invite's out, to a wide variety of people. I made it a creator meetup. So, I've invited everybody from podcasters to YouTubers to photographers to videographers and everybody who does creative stuff in between. I just wanted it to be a more sort of inclusive kind of thing. Of course, we have permission to film there and photograph as well, which is always kind of the deal that I like to have when we go places, is that we get to go out and maybe create something as well. Hopefully we'll get to make some new DXT GIFs and all that kind of cool stuff. So should be a fun time. Hey, good to see you, Josh. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully you had a great tour over the weekend. Hopefully everything went smoothly. There was some snow, I know, kicking around and stuff like that, but I'm sure you had a fun time and a busy time. Craftsman says, can't wait for the meetup. Got a cool idea for my video. That's cool. It's cool. Can't wait to hear about it. It will be awesome. So, again, anything you guys want to discuss, by all means, throw it in the chat. I'm going to talk about some YouTube stuff, as is tradition. So, if you haven't logged into your YouTube account today, you probably haven't noticed yet, but all the stuff that went in hand with the COPPA decision, where YouTube paid out millions of dollars to the FTC. I always want to call them the Canadian, but the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, they paid their settlement there. And of course, a lot of these rules are going to be in effect on January 1st, 2020. So the big thing that's happening now is YouTube is rolling out their questionnaire on how you want to designate your channel. And every channel that you have will be asked basically a question, and you've got three options to answer. That yes, your channel is designed and aimed towards kids. all of it. No, you're an adult channel, you're aimed towards adults, or you would like to designate your videos one after one. And those are kind of the three options that you have. If you go with the latter ones, whether you say you're child, exclusive, or that you're adult exclusive, that you can change on a video to video basis what that target audience might be if you just happen to throw up something that might be kid orientated. But those are coming out, like I said, they're coming into effect January. What the decisions will do, if you clicked I'm child-based, all your videos in the past will be designated as child-based videos or child-directed videos. If you click, I am adult content, all your videos will be designated as adult content. And if you go video by video, you're going to have to go through your entire catalog and essentially designate every video. And they're going to ask you when you upload too, what your video is targeted towards. For example, when I set up this live stream, one of the things that I had to do was essentially designate, was this targeted towards children or was this targeted towards adults? So I had to do that designation right away for this video. So you're going to see this now, I think, moving forward, exclusively on the platform. It means a lot of different things for a lot of people, depending on the content that you create and the type of channel you have. This will or will not have a big effect on you. It's if you are, for example, Lloyd and JD, it's going to have no effect on you whatsoever because, we are not child-directed content in the slightest. And anybody that would make the argument that we are has obviously never watched the show. Knowing where you kind of go, and everybody, and this is what YouTube has said, is that everybody knows their audience best, so they're looking for people to designate their own stuff. They have indicated, which is a very interesting thing I found, was that, if you sort of go to them and say, hey, I have a question for you. Is this child-created content or is it not? They're not going to answer your question. They're going to point you towards sort of the guidelines set forward by the FTC and YouTube, and that's kind of it. They're not going to give any advice. And in fact, the video that they rolled out today, they indicated that, if you have questions on what your content is really actually directed at and what you should designate yourself out, you should, read the rules and potentially contact a lawyer. But YouTube is not going to be handing out, as they put it, legal advice. So I think it's interesting that the platform, again, is looking to distance themselves from creators in the sense that they're looking at it as like you are a third party using their platform. They set up some guidelines. If you refuse or don't operate within those guidelines or the way it's going to be used, there's going to be consequences. And they've indicated that as such as well. They have indicated that if you are going to misuse the designation, for example, maybe you're playing with children's toys all the time, or you're doing cartoons that are targeted towards children, if you do not designate them as child directed and you abuse the system, there will be consequences for that. And a lot of that could probably end up in something such as channel termination. Of course, they have an algorithm working on this as well. So depending on what you are putting out there, it might get automatically designated as child content. If you, of course, have the right to appeal that. But who knows how that's going to go. And I mean, there are some interesting sort of game areas for that. One of those, of course, being gaming as a whole. Where is that going to leave streamers that stream gaming? What are they targeted at? And I think, sort of a good measure in those regards, something like the gaming designation, where you have ratings for games. If you're playing mature rated games, I would say you're not directed toward a child audience. So in a sense, that old system that was put in that nobody liked, where it was sort of designating games, for these are for adults, these are for mature, these ages, might actually work to your advantage because, if you're playing something like Grand Theft Auto, you are really not targeting children under the age of 13. And by definition in the United States, a child is anyone under the age of 13 years old. So, I mean, they are going to have some definite implications to some channels that are out there, especially larger YouTubers that, have child directed content, kids channels are definitely going to see some impact from this, but I don't think it is as bad as, a lot of these child, channels are indicating it's going to be. Hey, good to see you, Noitebs. Thanks for tuning in. How you doing, man? So things like that. It's going to be interesting how things sort of evolve in that. Of course, you're not going to have directed advertising. It's going to be more like it would be done on television. So they're going to insert ads still in your content. It's just not going to be specifically picked for that individual. It might be a generic toy commercial, so they wouldn't be able to see that it's a male user versus a female user, that they are in this age bracket, and therefore zero in on the toy, maybe action figures, for a boy, if you're getting really kind of targeting those audiences, or Barbie dolls for young ladies. They probably won't target in. It would just be a general thing, whether you're watching the video or not. If Hasbro pays for a G.I. Joe video, they're going to play it to whoever is watching, even though it might not be targeted towards that individual. Is that a good thing? I don't see it as a bad thing. I don't think that the impact is going to be as great. I think that a lot of children's channels might see a decrease in advertising a little bit. But to the same extent, I think that you're going to, see a lot of advertisers just put in general ads anyways. So, you're still going to see advertising against that content at the end of the day. I don't think, it's the end of the world like a lot of people, have sort of indicated. Of course, people are wary of the fines that the FTC can throw down, being like $42,000 for each violation. Again, if you're playing by the rules, chances are, they're not going to hammer people. I think they're going to go after the flagrant offenders. I think that the FTC has a plan to go after people that are promoting products and not designating as such as well. So, it will be interesting to see, how this sort of affects the entire ecosystem. Channels such as myself, where we have things like Lloyd and JD, which, have limited, sort of advertising on it anyways, just due to the nature of the content and the language that we choose during those podcasts. Those aren't going to be affected at all. So, this is really nothing new for some adult channels. And we've seen it in the past as well, where they have, controlled the content moving forward for people. So things like, guns channels, or, things that deal with illicit drugs, or, as most recently as, dealing with things like eating disorders such as anorexia, and so on and so forth. The LGBTQ community has had to deal with issues as well. So, having these kind of little roadblocks along the way are not necessarily, anything new to a lot of YouTubers. But I would say that this is something most definitely new to people that are in that realm of building content exclusively for kids. They're getting their first taste of, sort of these YouTube rules and regulations. So it's an interesting thing in the sense that, and I've said it before, is that when you play in somebody else's sandbox, they set the rules, and that's definitely what's happening here. Again, I don't see it as the end of the world. It's just one of those kind of things. You just have to click a box. It's not a big deal for myself. But then again, I don't create child-directed programming in the slightest. And again, if anybody says that Lloyd and JD is that, that's good for a laugh any way you look at it. Hey, good to see you, reviewee. Thank you so much for tuning in. So I'm curious if you guys have heard anything about COPPA this far, what you know about it. Are there any questions that you sort of have going forward? Have you checked into your YouTube channel? Have you designated your channel thus far? Are you going through your back catalog of videos? Are you checking through those and designating them as such? Or, have you not just logged in, or is this the first you're hearing of it right now? Because again, this isn't coming into full force and effect till January. However, of course, YouTube is getting people to designate their stuff now. I took today, I went through and I designated the channels that I still kind of upload or will upload to. The other ones that are just kind of parked, it doesn't really matter. So I just kind of left those. But like again, for me, it was all, it's all adults, sort of rated. Stuff. So I have designated it as such. And even my gaming channel, which maybe would have been the most questionable of them all, generally I play mature games, and generally language kind of, excludes, that from being, for the under 13-year-old crowd. Marie says, yeah, designated my channel not produced for kids. Yeah, and I mean, I think, for the vast majority of YouTubers, again, this is not going to be a huge thing. The vast majority of YouTubers I know are all, creating their content. They're not producing it for kids. They're producing it for a different audience, and there's no real kind of gray area. I do know some kids channels. They're really kind of up in arms about it, but again, they're sort of more up in arms because the fact that there's not targeted advertising, and they're fearful they're going to lose a lot of money. Which again, if you're not playing, if you don't control the sandbox, those things can get turned off in a dime. And I mean, anybody that has any kind of experience with AdSense knows that your rate and how much you charge and how much you get in terms of AdSense revenue fluctuates based on bids and a whole bunch of other factors. So I mean, it's not exactly predictable as well. Craftwork, my content may be family friendly, but it's not exactly produced for kids. And exactly, I mean, you're dealing with all typically adults doing cosplay. Yes, there might be some characters that are aimed towards kids, but it's not produced towards that. I mean, these are all grown adults that are doing cosplay. However, if you would feature the channel featuring young kids doing it, might be a different thing. Reviewee says, my content may be family friendly, but it's not exactly produced for kids. No cruising, but not Paw Patrol over here. Yeah, it's, and that's, you're kind of in the sweet spot. If you're producing, good content, no cussing, you're just being entertaining, you are in that sweet spot that YouTube wants anyways. So I don't think anybody's really kind of going to get touched in that. It's when you start getting to those extremes. Hey, Pete, good to see you. So, I mean, it's going to be an interesting transition for people. It will be interesting to see, if it does have an effect on advertising or not. I don't believe that it will. I believe that anybody that was really kind of targeting those age groups anyways are still going to run ads. They're still going to be run across all those channels that have kid-directed content. It's just not going to be specified to the user across the board. So, I mean, if you're watching kid-generated or kid-directed content, even as an adult, you're probably going to see more than your fair share of toy commercials, which, whatever, like I have fond memories of Saturday morning cartoons and, the Battle of Endor and all sorts of things, and all these cool Star Wars figures are there, and again, it's directed at certain individuals, but, it might miss, it might hit depending on your audience at the time that it's being viewed. But, that's not really your concern. Maybe they might charge a little bit less for that, but then again, you never know. It might be one of those things. We just recently had a change in terms of the yellow icon, not suitable for all advertisers, where YouTube has indicated that they have now got it where they have advertisers that are specifically requesting that kind of content. They want something that's a little bit more edgy, and therefore they are charging those advertisers a bit of a premium. You're going to see the same thing on the other end. So there you go. Josh says, I am always on the live of should I create family-friendly on the live of should I create family-friendly content or not. It's, as far as creating content goes, it's whatever, you're most comfortable doing. I mean, it's, I wouldn't do something just for the sake of doing it necessarily. I always advise people just stay true to yourself, and that might change. Like one video could be family friendly, the other one might not be. YouTube's a big space, and where you kind of land in certain things, it doesn't matter. And again, there is designation for specific videos. So if you decided to do a couple kid videos where you unbox, I don't know, something that was maybe definitely kid directed, like Lego, where you're unboxing that, even though as an adult I build Lego, I have like Ghostbuster stuff and stuff that appeals to my adult kid side. You can still designate those one videos and it's not a huge deal. Pete says, my channel at times isn't family friendly when I brew beer or mead or whatnot. And that's exactly it. And you fall in sort of that yellow tag category, where it's, alcohol, or, something that YouTube isn't necessarily totally keen on. It just restricts, some of the advertising that goes forward. But I mean, they definitely have those things. I've watched things like Dan, who's Booze Reviews, who does obviously booze reviews and alcohol related stuff, and beer reviews and so on, and I will often see beer commercials run against his channel at times, and so there you go. I mean, it's very, very specific to a certain thing, and that's just the way it's going to be. Again, if you don't control the environment, you don't own, the playground, you don't get to, decide what's going to be put up in there. You might be able to play there and do your thing and do certain things. And, at a certain point, they might say, okay, the monkey bars, you're not allowed to walk across the top because that's too dangerous. We don't like that. So you're not allowed to do that anymore, but you're still allowed to swing underneath. And of course, you have to adapt to those things. Some things like Lego are 16 plus, like the Ultimate Collector Series. And there you go. When it comes down to designation or gray areas, things like that are your friend. I mean, obviously, if a toy indicates on it that it is for a mature, sort of thing, it designates an age, like 14 plus. You're never going to get an argument because that's what it's for. It's like it's designated by the manufacturer is this, it's 13 and under. We're just going to go with that, and you should be fine. I don't think there's going to be a ton of issue with this. I think the issues are going to come about with creators that feel that they're being wrongly done by, that they feel like this implementation isn't fair, that they're going to lose a lot of revenue, that they've worked hard to build these channels, and then just kind of don't designate it and then get caught and then end up with nothing, which is, probably the worst case approach to the whole thing. But, there are people that are going to do those things moving forward. So it's going to be interesting. I'm far away from having ads. And that's it too. Like, I mean, this won't even necessarily apply to a lot of people for a very, very long time, and that's fine. It's YouTube is, it's a place to put up your videos about you, what you want to do, what you enjoy. That's the whole, great part about the platform is that you get to put out your stuff and you put it out to the world, and they find you an audience in a sense, and you have the opportunity to grow. I mean, for that, it's absolutely amazing. It's, things have come a long way, from the days where you would produce a video and, you'd have to either, go into mass production and try to distribute it or just, the only people that would see it would be your friends and family. So it's, there you go. Pete says, laugh out loud, JD, you've only seen 1/4 of my Lego collection. That's true, and you've got an impressive one at that. I mean, it's you got a lot of stuff going on, which is really, really cool. I don't have much stuff. Like I said, I've got like a Ghostbusters car, and I think I've got a snow speeder from Star Wars, and that's the extent of my Lego collection. But I have a ton of junk anyways, kicking around. I got more than enough toys, for most kids in my office. So there you go. So that's kind of where the COPPA ruling lands. If you haven't done so already, remember to smash that like button. If you do have any other questions or anything that you want to discuss, by all means, throw it into the chat. Again, if you do happen to be going down to the Saddledome tonight, I will be photographing City in Color. Looking forward to it. Dallas Green, always awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing his little table with his bottle of beer and his whiskey set up as is tradition, and it should be a good time. I always like watching Dallas perform, whether, like I said, it was City in Color or Alexis on Fire or even just himself. Willie Bradley, what about the game rated T like EAUFC? It depends on where T lies, and we'll just kind of Google that. We'll see where T for teen is. T14. Okay, ESRB ratings. Okay, we got it. E for everybody. And of course, we've got 10 plus teen. So it does not have a distinguished age one. What's just above that? So we've got mature 17 plus. Teen, I would say you are relatively probably safe. Mainly because kids, by definition of the law, starts at 13 down. So, technically you've got 1 year of teen there. I would say for the vast majority of stuff, you are generally pretty safe in those regards. But that is a really good question, and that definitely falls in sort of that gray area. And I would argue that depending on what the rest of your content is and, how you present yourself on stream would be a thing as well. I mean, obviously, if you are not communicating in a way that is indicated for younger kids, that would definitely be. I mean, if you ever watch me stream on Twitch, how I talk is kind of like this. Is most definitely not directed at younger individuals whatsoever. So, but again, YouTube has just kind of indicated that you know your audience best. You know where sort of your audience lies, and you'll be able to see that in your YouTube analytics. In fact, if I look at my YouTube analytics, I don't even think we have anything under the 17-year age mark. So, I mean, that shows you what your target audience is. So, I mean, again, it's, pay attention to your metrics, know where you're kind of going. And, I would argue that EAUFC would definitely be an adult type thing. It's fighting is kind of an adult sport, definitely, maybe in your teens start watching it, but younger than that, probably not necessarily. So I definitely there. T is like PG-13. So parental guidance, so you need parental position. So if you go on the PG-13, up until 13, you need parental guidance. I would say you're absolutely safe. 10 plus is PG. T is typically PG-13. M is R. If you want to compare it to the movies. So there you go. I think Pete's kind of laid that out really well. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely going to be some gray areas. One thing I wish I had looked into is I don't even know what the designation for Fortnite is, which will probably be the biggest one. But again, it depends on the platform you're on, because if you are a game streamer, chances are that might influence you on doing something different, such as moving to somewhere like Twitch, where this isn't being thrown. As well as Twitch, you have the controls, and you have them on YouTube as well, where you can have it as a 17 plus audience where people have to be logged in. You can age gate it. So, those are all options that are available to you. So, great question, Willie. But I think, like I said, most people will know where they land. I think, game streamers, are going to be, fairly well, marked where they sort of land on that scape. A lot of kids' video games are most definitely marketed as such. So as long as you're staying away from them. Willie says the law is consistently changing. The FTC is meeting about changing the law from child-directed to child-attracted, which means widening the scope. And, they've asked for input on that as well. What is child attractive? Is UFC child attractive? I would say no. Two grown men beating the living daylights out of each other and fighting is not really child attracted. Would something like Fortnite be child attracted? It's going to be maybe a bit of a different case. But again, if you find yourself, kind of treading in those things, you can do other things like play Call of Duty, which is most definitely not child directed. Jerry says, I'm glad YouTube has done this. I set all my videos to adult content. And like I said, I think everybody in this chat has sort of indicated the same thing, is that we've all set them as adult rated. Me, myself, with Lloyd and JD, we've always been targeted as such. I think, a lot of the outcry comes, again, is because a very big section of YouTube that for a very long time has had no kind of, rules slapped upon them, is seeing that now. People on the other end of things, people who deal with, talking about beer, or, have language, or, talk about, different subjects, like myself and Lloyd, we will talk about, all sorts of things, from, the legalization of marijuana to aliens and so on and so forth. All those things get knocked down. They get basically the yellow flag and get limited content. So, I mean, we're used to that kind of thing, and it doesn't terribly bother us. But like I said, on the other end of things, I think a lot of kid-directed content that are truly kid-directed content, that are kids' channels, things like Ryan Toys, these kind of channels are definitely, shouting out. They're definitely calling foul. But the truth of the matter is that that's not going to change this designation thing. For any of you who logged into your YouTube channel at this point, will have seen that it's asked you right at the top. It comes across as a banner. Do you want to designate? And then, of course, you have the 3 options. Pete says WWE is watched by kids and teens. And that's, it's generally intended for a mature audience, because if you watch it right at the beginning, they will have a disclaimer. So that's, kind of that, that comes down to parenting at that point. Really, it does. I have a wide range of audience, from teens to seniors. Okay, boomer, laugh out loud. It's funny. I don't qualify as a boomer. I'm a Gen Xer, so I fall in a completely different category. Boomers would be my parents, but I am not in that category whatsoever. We are the forgotten generation. So, it's kind of like, I saw a good tweet about it the other day. It's like, hey, somebody talk to us in Gen X, like, anybody, like, just somebody notice us, because we were just kind of that forgotten generation that happened in between the boomers and the millennials. So we're just kind of stuck in the middle there. There you go. Okay, boomer. There you go. Yeah, that's a meme that has gone absolutely crazy. So, again, COPPA is one of those things that it's going to become old hat. I mean, at this point, it's just generally news. I mean, they're not things that are going to change. Willie indicated that they're going to, change the scope of the law from child attracted to widen the scope. I kind of, I kind of know where they're going with that. But I also, know that a lot of people are going to be scared by that. But generally speaking, I don't think the vast majority of people have anything to really kind of worry about, because mark my words, the moment that the FTC has this rolling, the next thing they're going at is going to affect everybody, is because they are going to target everybody that, doesn't disclose when they're getting free product, when it's a paid advertisement, all those kind of things. They're going to hammer down on all those guys, because a good example, which I always use all the time, is my, DJI. When the DJI drone comes out, on a certain day, everybody launches a video, and there you go. And then there's a bunch of videos. So that product hasn't even hit the main market. I think it hit the main market today. So anything up until this point, everybody that got one of those drones was given it by the company, or was paid as a sponsorship to release those videos. And trust me, you watch all those videos and nobody ever discloses that stuff. And that's where they're going to go after next. And I know for a fact that they've already gone after Ryan's Toys for some of these things. They were definitely going after children first, because they didn't like, sort of the things that were going on. Of course, there's, ignorance for the law is no excuse to not abide by it, and a lot of things that, happen on YouTube is because people are generally creating videos that have no experience making film or videos whatsoever, and YouTube is kind of the scope of the thing. That's why, copyright is a great example of, what always kind of makes people stumble, especially with music and using music against your videos and not understanding how that works. I feel that people are getting much more informed and educated about that. But at the end of the day, people still make the mistakes or, follow those things. Well, if I only use 3 seconds of a song, I don't owe any money, or, all these kind of things that don't really play to be true, but, we know what they are. YouTube enforces them. It's not a big deal. If you play by the rules, you're going to be fine. So there you go. Pete says, when I was growing up, a bunch of us watched WWE and talk about it in school every day till the next week. Willie says, if you choose to be safe as Designation channel is made for kids, then you run the risk of disabling your channel features because it's no longer commercially viable. That's tough. It is, and it isn't in a sense. The interesting part about, if you designate your child channel with that the fact that the videos that are designated that you're going to be unable to leave comments on that. Again, that's just because they don't want to entrap any kind of information or have, people in their videos say, hey, if you want to leave your name, your number, your age, and what, all this, they don't want people trapping that kind of information. So YouTube's doing away with it. We saw that with, sort of the issue with people time stamping videos with kids in precarious positions, and there was the whole pedophilia thing that came out in terms of YouTube where they shut down, comments for a ton of children's channels regardless. And they've also clamped down that anything, in general that is seen as contentious will typically go to your spam folder for you to take a look at. So I get that, but I mean, the truth of the matter is that, just because there's general advertising running doesn't mean that there isn't any advertising running. Just because it's not, specific to a group and targeted with an algorithm, like, YouTube generally does or Facebook generally does, doesn't mean that there isn't money in that for these people. That's kind of the overreaction that you are seeing, saying, oh, well, if you turn off, specific ads, well, I'm not going to make any money. Well, that's not true. There are going to be advertisers that specifically want to get in front of kids. I mean, again, if you go back to the 80s or even now, if you watch something on a Saturday morning, it is directed towards children. Those advertisements are directed at kids. They know that kids generally from this age group are going to be watching. They're under 13. This is what they want to put in front of them, and they just do it. The thing is now is on YouTube, they're going to run like that. So, sort of my example before earlier in there is that whether you're a boy or a girl, and regardless of what your interests are, if Hasbro runs a G.I. Joe commercial, that might appeal to both of them. It might appeal one. It might appeal to none of them. That's just the way it's going to be. But that commercial is going to run there. If it's Barbie, same thing. Might appeal to both, might appeal to one, might appeal to none. That commercial is going to run. And even, if I go and watch a child's, channel for whatever reason that I want to watch, maybe I want to get, my Yo Gabba Gabba fix on and want to watch some Yo Gabba Gabba songs. At the end of the day, if they happen to play any of those commercials, then I'm not going to see a beer commercial necessarily, but, I will see, those general targeted videos. So, I mean, there's still the opportunity there to make money. I don't think that, it doesn't make it commercially viable. I think that is the argument that is being presented by a lot of larger children programs because they are fearful they're going to lose their livelihood. And I don't think that they're going to lose their livelihood. Not in the slightest. If you're generating millions of views like some of these guys are per video, you're still going to be doing all right at the end of the day. I think it's just a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. And I mean, the truth of the matter is that COPPA's existed for some time. The fact that people weren't complying with it and YouTube weren't complying with it, just goes to show you that, things can change. And again, if you don't own the sandbox, there's not much that you can do about it. I mean, if you are that concerned about having specific ads, I mean, options could be is that you start your own web space for your own channel and you put up videos there that are exclusively there, and that you have, you meet all the requirements. So you have things like people give parental consent to, entrap that information or have that kind of stuff and watch and get your own advertisers. I mean, there's a lot of things that can be done. Willie says, in the future, do you think there will be actual cases and where a channel owner will be charged $42,000 for misdesignation? Yes, but no. So do I think owners will get that? Yes. I think if you get big enough and you are definitely abusing the system, that could happen. But if you listen to what YouTube put out today, I don't think there's going to be that much of that, because if YouTube finds that you are putting stuff out there and they deem it to be child directed, sort of videos, that they're going to designate it as such. Now you can appeal to them. They will have an appeal process, just like when you get, the yellow limited monetization thing. You will be able to appeal that to them. But where they go with that, who knows? Again, this is going to be bot orientated. It might have some glitches in the beginning. There might be some growing pains in those things. But, YouTube is taking this very, very seriously. That's number one, why they're saying to you, and they're putting the onus on the creator. And that's kind of the big thing. So this is why I think that, yes, if you abuse the system and you get caught doing this over and over and repeatedly, you might find yourself in that situation. Because they're saying, number one, you need to designate. You know your audience best. You know what you're going for. You're making that choice, not us, right off the hop, unless it is blatantly obvious that you are designating yours, in which case we'll take matters into our own hands and we'll switch it. And they've indicated if you continue to do it, they're just going to terminate your channel. So, I mean, that's a reality as well. And the other part of it as well is that they've indicated that if you are seeking out information from YouTube on whether or not to designate your channel in a certain way. So if you're like, hey, YouTube, this is my video, check it out. What do you think that should be? So should that be kids designated or adult designated, or where does it fall? They have said they're not going to give any advice in that. They're going to point you towards, sort of the rules, and they're going to ask you to consult a lawyer, and that's straight out of YouTube's mouth. So I think that you will see it at some point. They're going to typically target bigger channels for that. Like I said, the FTC is already going after Ryan's Toys for setting out videos that were clearly advertisements and not indicating that they were designated as such. So of course that'll sort of draw itself out for a while, and then we'll see what comes out of that. But I think it is definitely a possibility. But like I said, for the vast majority of people, it's not. It's going to be a non-issue. It's just a matter of education, learning, and getting into the habit of doing it. As I indicated when I set up this live stream, I had two choices: is this designated towards kids or adults? I chose adults because that's what it is. I'm not talking in a manner that, even though we're talking about something that affects kids, we're talking about the legal aspects of it. It's not kid directed whatsoever. So again, these are all great questions, and most definitely, it's going to be a tough time, and it's going to be some change, some definite change for people along the way. But, it always sort of comes back to the same conversations that I have all the time, and I always feel like a broken record when I say them, is that when you're on a platform like YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, any of these things, when you're playing in these ecosystems that you don't own, you're going to be subject to the rules, and they can change at any time. I've said it before, it wouldn't be, unthought of that YouTube all of a sudden says, you know what, we're just not paying you anything. You have to pay us to upload your videos because it costs a ton of money to host your stuff here. And that's kind of it, and run ads against you and not do it. I mean, they're not doing that because they've built a good system where it's incentivized to build great content so people can make money, and they take their chunk and they split it. It's a good deal for YouTube as well. But, like I said, they could change that in a moment, much like they did with demonetization. And they said, if you have under 2,400 hours of view time and you have under 1,000 subscribers, we're just not going to pay you whatsoever. And I mean, they still will, on occasion, run ads against some of these channels. So there you go. Or YouTube Red. I know that some people actually get YouTube Red earnings even though they are not monetized technically. So I mean, it's interesting that kind of equation. It's a couple cents a month, but I mean, it is still kind of an interesting thing. So again, any questions, by all means, throw them in the chat. I appreciate all the questions you guys have. I remember, smash that like button, and I thank you so much for all the great questions today, because it has definitely added a great deal to the discussion. So, but moving forward, like I said, I mean, it's not really going to change. It's not going to go back to the way it was, I guess is what I'm looking to say, is that YouTube isn't going to switch, things back. I know, like I said, there are a lot of children's channels that were sort of getting people to, make their comments to the FTC, which is not a bad thing, to voice your opinion. And, I believe that's still open, so you can still go do that. But, things aren't going to move back. I don't think YouTube is going to move those rules back by anything. They're going to be as compliant as they can. They've got a lot more to lose than a lot of other individuals. And again, that's, again, when that, they're talking about if YouTube looks at saving themselves and, they have to sacrifice a few YouTubers, they're going to do that. I mean, they're a big corporation. They make their money. And, they're going to look at what's in their best interest first, and then after that, they're going to balance that against creators at the end of the day. So there you go. So again, any questions, by all means, throw them in the chat. I appreciate all the questions that we've had thus far, or anything else that you want to discuss. Again, because we've been going on for a bit, just remember that we do have a meetup this Sunday at the Rec Room, November 17th, at 1 p.m. You can RSVP through Eventbrite. You can check it out on my Facebook page or through my socials. There's a link there. So if you go to my Twitter at Pain Inc., you'll see a link there. I think it's the last post that I had. I think we've got about 32 odd people, going on right now. So, I mean, it's going to be a good time. It'll be a lot of fun. Awkward Occurrence Late Night Show. Sounds like YouTube wanted this to happen. I don't know if YouTube necessarily wanted it to happen, or, I mean, they did get fined by the FTC. So, this is the agreement that they came out with. And I think they will be extremely cooperative with it. I mean, it does have an impact a little bit maybe on their business as well. But again, it's not like they're doing, I want to sort of get clear that the misconception is that they're doing away with ads on children's channels. That's not what they're doing. They're just doing away with targeted, advertising. So they're not taking data collected by going through your YouTube browser that they collect and put into cookies to get the advertising towards you. They're not doing, that's what they're getting rid of, is the targeted advertising, but they will still run advertising. So creators will still make money. It's just not going to be as specific as it once was. And you know what? Generally speaking, if they did that across the platform, it would have a big impact, yes, but you would still make advertising dollars. You could still create, you could still make a living at YouTube. It's not going to be the end of the world. Only the content creators, or influencers as YouTube calls them, only influencers YouTube hire personally to make videos, will continue to benefit and influence the masses into hell. Yeah, I mean, that's something, again, that we've discussed on this channel, ad nauseum, is that, YouTube is the equivalent of a network. It is an online network. So it's no different than NBC, CBS, any of these guys. Their goal is to, get content out there, create, and I've said that the push has always been for YouTube to become more like TV as TV slowly dwindles away, as more people cut cable and utilize, streaming networks such as, Netflix or Disney Plus that just rolled out here in Canada, or YouTube to get their entertainment and sort of cut the cable. Definitely, YouTube wants to be in that platform. That's why, number one, they provide a cable service. It's number two, why they started doing things like last year, getting the sports going. So, doing live streams of baseball and, having games that were exclusively to YouTube, as well as creating their YouTube exclusive series, much like Netflix. So you see things like The Karate Kid. So it's definitely, it's definitely where their aspirations are to be. And I mean, if you really kind of want to look at it in a nutshell, it's a great incubator for talent, is that you can get all these people to submit and create videos for virtually nothing, and you can pick the cream of the crop, and you can definitely promote those, and that definitely happens. But we've also seen that blow up in YouTube's face. Perfect example is PewDiePie. It's a little bit of a different thing when people are still creating content on their side, because PewDiePie got let go, but he's still making a fortune on YouTube. So I mean, and he definitely still has his influence, and he may not have his YouTube Prime series anymore, and they may have taken that down, but he's still got his say here on YouTube. So if you have any questions, by all means, throw them in the chat. I'm just going to quickly press the insert ad button here as we, kind of get into this thing. If you do happen to see an ad, it's just because you hit the algorithm in the right way. And because this is a non-child directed program, it's directed towards adults. They will be specifically selected for you. Or if you see nothing, you just didn't hit the algorithm in the right way, and so be it. Willie says, hopefully the FTC definition of child-directed is the same as YouTube's machine-learned definition of child-directed, as the content creator will be the one in court in the end. You see, the thing is, though, is that, the FTC has already held YouTube a little bit accountable for that, so they're going to hold YouTube accountable for enforcement as well. So YouTube's not completely off the hook here. And that's why, there's kind of these hoops to go through. And I think that, as the definition sort of gets wrung out, that if it becomes a thing where it becomes a legal definition, where it is tried and tested in court, you will definitely see adjustments made on those behalfs. The truth of the matter is, like I said, I don't think there's going to be a ton of problem, because the vast majority of people that have been extremely vocal and upset are people that are creating child-directed content. They are 100% in that, both, feet in that boat. The people that I know locally that do that, they have been, it's like it's gonna, they've been kind of like the guy at the corner holding the sign saying the end of the world is coming. You're all gonna burn in hell, and there's nothing you can do about it because you're all getting taken down with this. And I think it's a lot of scare tactics. They have a bit to lose because they are a larger channel and they have a lot of stuff going on. But again, they're just going to have to make adjustments. And some of these channels, they can definitely do that. If they implement things like more sponsored videos and taking basically advertising within, as long as they're designating that, in regards to FTC guidelines, they're going to be fine. It just changes the way that they do things. Like I said, back, if I look at my film career, when I was producing films direct to DVD, it's all the money that we made were either from sales or, revenue from screenings, or it was from sponsors, and sponsors were clearly designated in those films, not only on the box, but in the opening credits as well as in the closing credits. So I mean, that's how those kind of things roll out. So it's going to be a very interesting run at the end of the day. But like I said, I think it's going to be relatively painless for, I would say, the vast majority, because most people know where exactly they lie in this whole sort of continuum of things. And again, that's how YouTube's laying out. It's like, your audience. You have analytics. You can see who's watching your videos. I mean, you can see what country they're watching from. You can see how long they watch your videos for. You can see, what age bracket they are in. You can see all those things on your YouTube analytics. You just have to do a little bit of a deep dive. and at the end of the day, you know where it is. You know where your content is. You know if you are, doing, unboxing of toys and you're saying, you're unboxing Fisher Price toys and you're doing all this kind of stuff and you have your son or daughter opening them up and they're the main one on camera. Like, I mean, you know what you're designated as. You know 100% where you lie. It's not anything but that. It's kid directed, like or kid attractive. Like that's really really kind of what it is. You know, it's you know where you land. Whereas if you're unboxing, you know all sorts of other things, whether it be camera gear or whatever tech stuff, that is generally directed. It's not specific for kids. It's not trying to entice kids. You know, it's just one of those things. And I mean, at the end of the day, I will say this, that I don't think it's a terribly bad thing that YouTube is doing. I think that there needs to be the protection of children, especially in terms of videos. I've watched my fair share of different YouTube channels and different family vlogs and different kids vlogs and all sorts of stuff and kids unboxings. And I think in years to come we're going to see some interesting phenomenon. Because YouTube is so young. If you take a look at things like child stars and child actors, there are still things in place that protect them. How many hours they can work on set, before they have to. How many days they have to have off. What when they can work, how they can work. Safety stuff, all that kind of stuff. That all exists in Hollywood and film. It doesn't necessarily exist in YouTube. And what I think is a little bit of a scary trend sometimes is the vast majority, and I'll say this, the vast majority of parents in this world are very good people and they want the best things in the world for their kids. However, there are some people, and we have seen it on YouTube, where there's been some things like, I think it was Family of 5, where they were basically abusing their kids and torturing their kids to get views, which is kind of crazy and got, punted off. But, there are kids creators that are working, they've got to put these things out because the parents, their job is managing their kids and putting together these videos and doing all this kind of stuff. And that's where their entire income comes from. And at that point, it becomes a little bit of a scary thing if you don't have a responsible parent, or, maybe you have a kid that says at one point, Mom, Dad, I really don't want to unbox stuff anymore. I just want to go play with my friends. And dad says, no, you're going to make this video before you can go out. I can see those situations happening. And who protects these people in those situations? I mean, on a Hollywood set with a film where you've got, actors and agents and producers and safety guys and all sorts of people, kind of hovering around, and still bad things happen on Hollywood sets, but, in a home unit, who's going to see those things? You might not see it. So, I mean, it'll be interesting moving forward to see how that goes. Anything that we do in order to protect kids, I think is a good thing. I think that, it's definitely, if you take a look at things like Cambridge Analytica, which happened with Facebook, and influence things like the elections and so on, which is proven, where they're collecting data and profiling people, that, the smaller footprint that you have on people starting off, the better you are. Because if you start tracking kids at a young age and keep on going forward, you are sort of amalgamating a huge amount of data, and what you can, determine from that data is actually quite scary at times. Willie says the older kids that pose the biggest threat are the 12-year-olds. Can be interested in adult content. So if a couple of 12-year-old comment on your video, should you worry about being fined $42,000? I would say the answer to that is no, because, honestly, YouTube is supposed to be 13 plus. If they have their own account, they would have to designate it as such. I don't think you're going to get necessarily in trouble for that unless they start saying, I'm 12 years old and I'm here and I'm commenting and, all sorts of stuff. I don't think you're going to have a problem at all. And again, if a 12-year-old shows up on, Lloyd and JD and starts commenting, chances are, like, number one, where are his parents? Because that is the last show that you want your kids to watch. And number two, is, that I don't think anybody's going to blink, twice at that. Nobody's going to identify that as a 12-year-old. And, to be honest, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe one of the things that YouTube should be doing, excuse me, is, setting it up where, okay, yeah, you got to be 13-year-old to use the site. Maybe they should be making, 12-year-olds and under accounts, where it's designated with that. You sign up with a parent, they give their consent, which is a big part of COPPA. If you give consent, you can do that. Then absolutely fine. Again, those that are sitting kind of, on the fringe of things, I think will generally be fine. It's, if there's something that is that gray and that big, like let's say they came out with a game, who knows, like let's just take Plants versus Zombies. Let's say that was a child attractive or child based game. And it was and they decided to designate that as stuff. As long as they're indicating that to creators and creators know that, then there shouldn't be an issue. So, I mean, I think it's it's going to take work on both sides of the fence. But generally speaking, I think the vast majority are fine. I don't think there's anybody that sort of occupies that gray space, exclusively, that they just operate in that sort of gray space where it's like, my target audience is 11-year-olds. Even then, if you know that, then you should be designating yourself one way. If you're kind of hitting that 12 to 14-year-old group, it'll be interesting. Again, it'll depend on what your content is. Like, I mean, arguably, you can take a look at your content and say, yeah, I'm targeting kids. Like, this is a child, kind of thing. It's attractive to that. But some 12-year-old kids are attracted to makeup products that are 18 plus. It's or whatever the case may be. But I think a reasonable person, and if you go to court, if you do things and you look at legalities, there's a reasonable man case. What would a reasonable man presume? Would a reasonable man presume that this is the case? Would a reasonable person say that I am creating content for adults? Would a reasonable person say that I am creating content for kids? Those are the tests that you have to pass in court, and I think it is, generally fairly straightforward, how those things are laid out. So this has been a great conversation, guys. I appreciate it so much. I realize there is 10 of you in here listening away. If you can smash that like button. Again, we do the streams Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. This is definitely a discussion that I am ready to continue. If you want to continue this discussion on Thursday, we can definitely do that. But unfortunately, I have to wrap the stream up because, of course, I am working tonight. So again, if you're down at the Saddle Dome, City in Color, Dallas Green, I will be photographing that. So if you do happen to be there, do say hello. I will be in the pits in front of the entire stadium. So just give me a wave, or if you happen to be, sitting, I usually sit out in the concourse for a little while, hang out with a bunch of other people and just kind of chit chat on my bench. If you happen to see me there, by all means, say hi. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Smash that like button. And if you haven't subscribed to us already, please do that, as well as follow us on our socials. And it's been a great conversation. Willie, thank you so much for all your questions. I think you have some great questions on the subject. Again, there are some gray areas that are not 100% clear, but I think as long as you go in there with good faith, realize and take an honest look and know what you're doing, and I think most people know what their audience is. I mean, you can be family friendly, but that doesn't mean you're targeting kids. I mean, targeting kids, I think most people know where they sort of line up in those regards. So it's a good thing. Again, if we wanted to continue this discussion on Thursday, more than happy to see you Thursday, 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Hope you guys have a fantastic night. And if I see it City in Color, do say hello. And until next time, see ya.